In the unyielding silence of the wild, visibility is a death sentence. The predator that reveals its position too early loses its meal. The prey that stands out from its environment loses its life. This is the fundamental law of biological survival, and it has not changed just because you live in a world of concrete and digital signals. Most men are walking targets. They move through the world with their default settings permanently engaged, broadcasting their insecurities, their class, and their desperate need for approval to every observer in their vicinity. They believe in the modern, sanitized lie of authenticity. They have been told that being yourself is a virtue, a noble path to fulfillment. This is a lethal delusion. Authenticity, as defined by the masses, is simply a refusal to evolve. It is a commitment to remaining rigid, predictable, and exposed. The chameleon understands that the self is not a static monument, but a tactical interface. It is a collection of frequencies and masks designed to bypass the social immune system of any group he wishes to infiltrate. We are beginning the deconstruction of the chameleon effect. We are presecting the art of social camouflage, showing you how to enter any room, mirror any frequency, and disappear into the background when necessary, all while maintaining an internal core of absolute cold sovereignty. This is not about being fake. It is about being effective. If you are seen, you are a target. If you are invisible, you are the master of the environment. To master this art, you must first accept the biological reality of the tribal filter. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain was tuned to detect the other. If a stranger entered the campfire circle who did not look, sound, or move like the group, the amygdala triggered a state of high alert. This mechanism is still fully operational in every modern interaction. When you walk into a boardroom, a high-stakes meeting, or a close social circle, everyone's subconscious is scanning you for the signal of belonging. If your frequency doesn't match, the gates of trust close, and you are met with invisible resistance. The chameleon does not try to break the gate. He simply reflects the gate back to itself. He observes the dress code, the specific tempo of speech, and the unspoken hierarchies, then mirrors them with surgical precision. This is the first step towards sovereignty. Admit that your current identity is a prison of your own making. You have been playing a role you didn't choose, and it is failing you. The first action you must take is to audit your own social rigidity. Where are you unable to adapt? Where does your ego prevent you from blending in? Recognize that your need to be seen for who you really are is the primary anchor holding you in the mud of mediocrity. We must analyze the physics of social pressure and the cost of being reactive. Most men are social followers. They enter a space and immediately adjust their energy to fit the room's dominant tone. They are being camouflaged by the environment, but they are not the ones in control of the process. This is passive camouflage, the hallmark of the subordinate. The apex predator utilizes active camouflage. He enters a space and chooses his projection based on a cold assessment of his objective. If he needs to gather information, he becomes social gray space. He speaks in a neutral tone, occupies less physical volume, and becomes the person no one remembers, but who hears every needs to lead. He subtly mirrors the highest status person until a biological bridge is formed, then slowly shifts his own frequency, pulling the room with him. This is social engineering at the genetic level. To begin this journey, you must commit to the practice of stillness. Stop moving your hands when you speak. Stop adjusting your clothes. Stop looking for the reaction of others. Every unnecessary movement is a signal of low status and internal chaos. You must learn to occupy space without demanding attention. The next layer of this strategy is behavioral mimicry, or what biologists call isopraxism. This is the involuntary tendency of social animals to mirror the movements of those they trust. The chameleon hacks this loop. He observes the breathing patterns, the posture, and the vocal tempo of his target, and subtly syncs his own biology to match. This triggers a release of oxytocin in the other person's brain, creating a sense of kinship that logic cannot override. They will tell you things they wouldn't tell their own family because their brain has flagged you as a part of their own pack. But you must be careful. This is not a game for the amateur. If your mirroring is too obvious, you become a creep. If it is too subtle, it has no effect. It requires the precision of a hunter. The advice here is simple but difficult. Practice mirroring in low-stakes environments. When you're at the store, at a coffee shop, or in a casual meeting, try to match the physical tempo of the person you are interacting with. Notice how their tone softens. Notice how they lean in. You are learning to play the human instrument. Finally, we must address the internal firewall. The danger of the chameleon effect is losing your core in the masks you wear. Many men start acting a part and eventually forget there was ever a director behind the scenes. They become the role, and in doing so, they lose their sovereignty. To prevent this, you must maintain a core of absolute private stillness, a Vanta black center that no one ever sees. This is where your true mission lives. Every mask you wear is a tool for that mission. Whether you are using the protocol to build your digital assets, or navigating a corporate hierarchy, the goal is always the same: the extraction of resources and the expansion of your own territory. You must remind yourself every night that the smile was a tactic, the suit was a uniform, and the words were a frequency. You are the sovereign observer, moving through the world like a ghost, taking what you need and leaving no trace. If you do not have this core, you are not a chameleon. You are just a lost soul wearing too many clothes. Recognition of this truth is the only way out of the matrix. Stop trying to be understood. Start being effective. Linguistic camouflage is the second layer of the ghost's armor, and it is where most men suffer a fatal rupture in their projection. While your visual aesthetic gets you through the door, your voice is the frequency that determines how long you are allowed to stay inside the room and whether the gates of the inner sanctuary will open for you. Most men are linguistically rigid. They have one way of talking, one set of vocabulary, and one emotional tone that they use for everyone they encounter. They believe that their voice is a reflection of their soul, but in the cold reality of social engineering, your voice is a software patch designed for a specific hardware environment. When a rigid man enters a new hierarchy, he creates massive audio friction. If he is an intellectual who speaks to a street-level operator in academic jargon, he is signaled as an alien and a threat. If he is a hustler who speaks to a high-level financier in slang, he is signaled as a risk. In both cases, the biological connection is severed before the first sentence is finished. The chameleon understands that language is a biohack. Every subculture, every social class, and every professional elite has its own vocal handshake, a specific combination of tempo, pitch, and vocabulary that signals membership in the pack. We are now precepting the mechanics of linguistic camouflage, teaching you how to audit the frequency of a room in seconds and adjust your vocal cords to match it, ensuring that your words are not just heard but are accepted as internal data by the listener's brain. To master this frequency shift, you must first understand the biology of vocal pitch and authority. In the primal dominance hierarchy, lower-pitched voices are associated with higher testosterone and greater physical size. But the chameleon knows that raw aggression is often a low-status signal. If you enter an environment of intellectual or financial elites, men who move millions with a whisper, a booming, loud voice marks you as a brute. It signals that you are trying too hard to dominate, which is a hallmark of the insecure. In those rooms, the camouflage requires a measured neutrality. You must speak with a flatter affect, precise enunciation, and a moderate volume that forces others to lean in to hear you. You use the silence between your words to signal that your brain is processing data faster than your mouth can move. Conversely, if you are in a high-pressure, physical environment where decisions are made in seconds, that same intellectual tone will mark you as weak and indecisive. There, you must sharpen your vowels and increase your tempo. You must become the sound of the environment. The first step for any man who is serious about survival is to recognize that his current speech pattern is likely a collection of lazy habits and defensive tics. You must audit your own recordings. Listen to how you speak when you are nervous. Do you talk faster? Does your pitch rise? Recognize these as leaks in your power. The next level of infiltration is vocabulary auditing. Every tribe has shibboleths, specific words, acronyms, or metaphors that only an insider can use with the correct weight. If you use a technical term slightly wrong in a room of experts, your camouflage is blown instantly and you are revealed as a tourist. The chameleon strategy is strategic ignorance followed by rapid assimilation. When you enter a new niche, you do not try to fake the jargon immediately. That is the path of the fool. Instead, you ask high-level, intelligent questions that force the insiders to explain their concepts. As they speak, you are not just learning the facts, you are recording their specific phrasing. You are noting which words they emphasize and which concepts they treat with reverence. Then, within the same conversation, you begin to mirror those exact phrases back to them. You are reflecting their own thoughts in their own linguistic code. By the end of the interaction, they will be convinced that you are one of the most insightful individuals they have ever met because you are speaking the internal language of their own mind. This is how you bypass the filters of suspicion and move straight into the zone of trust. We must analyze the mirroring of emotional intensity. Most social friction occurs because of an energy mismatch. If someone is speaking with high-intensity hand gestures and rapid speech, and you respond with cold, stoic indifference, you are creating an emotional barrier. You are signaling that you are not on their frequency. The chameleon practices affective syncing. He matches the emotional volume of the person he is talking to, not to be their friend, but to build the bridge. If they are excited, he increases his kinetic energy. If they are speaking in a low, conspiratorial whisper, he lowers his wattage to match. Once the bridge is built through this biological mirroring, you gain the power to lead the interaction. If they are angry, you match their intensity without the aggression, and then you slowly lower your own own volume and tempo. Because you are synced, their biology will involuntarily follow yours down into a state of calm. You are regulating the emotions of the room through the silent control of your own voice. This is the difference between being a victim of the environment and being the architect of it. This brings us to the tactic of shadow echoing. This is the subtle adoption of the rhythm and slight vocal tilt of the local dialect or social class. It is not an impression, it is a resonance. Many men are too proud or too rigid to adapt their accent, clinging to it as a badge of identity. This is an ego-driven mistake that limits your territory. The chameleon is a polyglot of social class. He understands that a slight shift in cadence can remove the stiff outsider vibe and make the interaction feel like a home game for the target. It lowers their defenses and allows you to extract the information or the commitment you require. If you cannot change your frequency, you are a static object in a dynamic world. The advice is clear. Stop treating your voice as a sacred part of your identity and start treating it as a tool of the hunt. Recognize that blind adherence to your original script is a path to nowhere. Consider the power of the silent observation phase. The biggest mistake of the amateur is talking too much. Every word you speak is a risk to your camouflage. The more you talk, the more chances you have to miss signal. The apex predator is a linguistic ghost. He lets others do 80% of the talking, using minimal encouragers, short neutral phrases that keep the other person providing data. As they talk, they are literally giving you the dictionary of how to influence them. They are revealing their fears, their biases, and the specific frequency they respond to. By the time the chameleon finally speaks, he has enough data to craft a single, perfect sentence that hits the target with absolute resonance. He doesn't need to speak 1,000 words because he has found the 10 words that unlock the vault. Silence is the dark room where your strategy is developed. If you are constantly filling the air with noise, you are not a chameleon, you are just another distraction. Finally, you must understand the sovereign application of this skill. You are not changing your voice to fit in because you are lonely or seeking approval. You are changing your voice to infiltrate and dominate. You are a spy in the service of your own mission. Whether you are using the proven systems to build your digital fortress or negotiating in the physical world, your voice is the remote control for the people around you. When the hunt is over, you return to your core frequency, the voice of your sovereign self. This is the voice you use only with your pack and those you have vetted. All other voices are just software patches designed for specific tasks. Recognize that if you cannot control your frequency, you cannot control your future. The first step is to vypisać swoje sami oczyvidne iluzje about your own communication. Admit that you are linguistically stuck. Recognize that your current way of speaking is a cage. Only then can you begin the hard work of mastering the frequency of the ghost. If you realize that your own self-organization is failing, there are structured routes and proven systems for those who need a direct path, but the responsibility to act remains yours alone. Psychological camouflage is the deepest, most dangerous layer of the chameleon's art, and it is where the true sovereign separates himself from the performing amateur. While your visual aesthetic gets you through the gate and your linguistic frequency keeps you in the room, your psychological camouflage determines whether you are trusted with the crown jewels of information and influence. Most men are slaves to their own opinions. They have a desperate biological need to be right, to defend their political dogmas, and to signal their moral virtues to anyone who will listen. They are psychologically rigid, anchored to a singular map of reality that they mistake for the truth. When they encounter someone with a different internal landscape, they immediately create conflict. They argue, they judge, and they alienate, blowing their camouflage and becoming a visible, hostile other. The chameleon understands that values and beliefs are not sacred monuments, but tactical tools, software patches used to navigate different human operating systems. He doesn't just look like them and talk like them, he thinks like them. He adopts their biases, their fears, and their dreams as his own, creating a state of psychological enmeshment that makes suspicion unthinkable to his target. We are now precepting the art of social engineering, precepting the mechanics of how to wear the skin of another man's philosophy to extract the leverage required for your own absolute sovereignty. To master this level of infiltration, you must first develop what we call cognitive empathy. This is not the soft, sentimental empathy of feeling someone's pain. This is the cold, analytical empathy of understanding someone's logic. You must be able to look at the world through the lens of a religious zealot, a ruthless hedge fund manager, or a radical activist without letting your own ego interfere for even a microsecond. You are performing a biological system audit. You are asking, what are the core values of this tribe? What do they punish? What do they reward? What is their sacred cow that can never be questioned? Once you identify these pillars, you align yourself with them perfectly. If they value tradition and family, you become the most traditional man in the room. If they value disruption and chaos, you become the most radical innovator. You are not lying in the way a child lies. You are synchronizing your neural frequency with theirs. You are creating a bridge that allows information to flow from them to you with zero resistance. People are pathologically honest with those they believe share their soul. By camouflaging your psychology, you become the keeper of their secrets and the silent director of their actions. Recognition of this power is the first step out of the social mud. The next tactic is the strategic affirmation of ego. Every human being on this planet carries a narrative of the self, a story they tell themselves about why they are smart, why they are moral, or why they are powerful. Most men attack this narrative because they want to feel superior. They point out flaws and offer constructive criticism, which is a catastrophic failure of camouflage. The chameleon feeds the narrative. He identifies the part of the other person's ego that is the most fragile, and he becomes its greatest supporter. If a powerful man wants to be seen as a philosopher, the chameleon asks him for wisdom. If a subordinate wants to be seen as a warrior, the chameleon praises his grit. By affirming their self-image, you become a psychological drug. They will seek you out because you are the only person who makes them feel like the version of themselves they desperately want to be. You have now established psychological dominance through the mask of submission. You own the person because you own the source of their dopamine. If you cannot do this, you are merely another ego fighting for scraps in the dirt. Admit that your need to be seen as right has cost you more than you can afford to lose. We must analyze the mirroring of traumatic frequencies. Human beings are bonded most tightly, not by joy, but by shared pain. If you want to bypass years of trust building in a single hour, you must find a shared scar. This is the ultimate vulnerability hack. The chameleon observes the other person for signs of old wounds, rejection by a father, a failed business, a loss of status. He then subtly projects a matching frequency. He doesn't tell a long, pathetic story. He simply lets a fragment of a similar struggle slip out in conversation. He signals, "I have been in the same darkness as you." This creates an immediate biological kinship. The other person's guard drops because their brain has flagged you as an extension of themselves. You have achieved deep camouflage. From this position, you can influence their decisions and redirect their resources as if you were their own subconscious mind. This is not a game for the weak-hearted. It is a clinical execution of influence. If this feels uncomfortable, it is because you are still attached to the illusion of social fairness. Recognize that the world is not fair. It is a series of biological systems waiting to be managed or to manage you. This leads to the tactic of the moral mirror. Every group has a moral code that acts as a social immune system. If you violate this code, you are attacked and removed. The chameleon never violates the local code. He is always the most virtuous member of whatever group he is in, according to their definition of virtue. In a room of sharks, he is the most ruthless. In a room of saints, he is the most devout. He uses the proven systems to ensure his digital footprint and his public actions match this chameleon nature. He understands that morality is a social signal, not a universal constant. By mirroring the moral frequency of the target, he gains the authority to lead them. People will follow a man they believe shares their values into the very fires of hell. You are not there to change their values. You are there to use their values to achieve your mission. Blindly following your own moral script in a foreign environment is a path to nowhere. It is a sign that you are still a social pawn, not a sovereign player. Consider the intelligence extraction strategy. The ultimate goal of psychological camouflage is the acquisition of high-value intel. When you are perfectly camouflaged, people will reveal the hidden leaks in their companies, the secret weaknesses of your competitors, and the future moves of the market. You are a human recording device, gathering the life force of their knowledge and storing it in your own temporal fortress. You are the one who knows everything and is suspected of nothing. This is the sovereignty of information. While others are guessing based on public noise, you are acting based on the raw, private truth. You are the only person in the room who sees the entire board because you have been inside everyone else's head. If you find yourself unable to perform this level of analysis, it is a sign that your own mental clarity is compromised. For those whose self-organization has failed, there are structured routes and proven systems to rebuild that clarity, but the first step is always yours. Finally, we must talk about the internal firewall. Psychological camouflage is the most dangerous form of mimicry because it risks core corruption. If you spend too much time thinking like a loser to infiltrate losers, you might start to believe their excuses. To prevent this, you must maintain a hardened internal firewall. You must maintain a clinical distinction between the mask and the master. You are an actor who never forgets his lines, but also never forgets that he is an actor. Every evening, you must perform a psychological purge. You return to your core mission. You remind remind yourself that the values you mirrored were just code used to hack a system. You have no shared soul with the masses. You only have a shared frequency for the duration of the hunt. You are the ghost who walks through walls. Stop blindly repeating the scenarios of others. It is a path to decay. Recognize that you are currently stuck in a psychological cage of your own making. The first move is to acknowledge the depth of your own entrapment. Admit that you have been a slave to your own identity. Only then can you begin to wear the masks of power. If you realize that you cannot build this firewall alone, seek the proven routes, but do not wait for permission to begin your survival. We have arrived at the absolute zenith of social engineering, the sovereign integration. This is where the visual aesthetic, the linguistic frequency, and the psychological masks you have meticulously crafted are fused into a singular, seamless system of reality management. Most men, even those who attempt to play the game of power, fail here because they remain fragmented. They have an uncanny valley in their projection, a subtle friction where the mask doesn't quite fit the master, signaling to the primal brains of others that something is wrong. The sovereign man eliminates this friction. He does not just put on a mask, he becomes the ghost in the machine, inhabiting any role with such absolute precision that he becomes indistinguishable from the hierarchy itself, while remaining entirely separate from it in his core. This is the final autopsy of your current failed existence and the blueprint for the only way out of the social mud. If you do not achieve this integration, you are not a chameleon. You are just a performer waiting to be unmasked. You must first understand the catastrophic biological cost of visibility. Every time you are detected as an other in a social environment, your metabolic energy is wasted on defense. Your cortisol levels spike, your hypervigilance drains your cognitive resources, and your status risk increases exponentially. The man who shouts about his authenticity is a man who is begging to be hunted. He is broadcasting his internal blueprint to a world of predators and calling it honesty. This is a terminal delusion. In the cold light of the wild, the creature that is perfectly seen is the creature that is being prepared for consumption. The sovereign man understands that true power lies in information asymmetry. By mastering the integration of camouflage, you ensure that you know everything about the environment while the environment knows nothing about you. You become a nerve ending of the hierarchy, sensing shifts in power and resources long before they reach the surface. You are standing in the center of the room, wearing the skin of the elite, thinking their thoughts and speaking their language, but you are a ghost. You have bypassed the social immune system, and from the inside, you can begin the clinical extraction of the leverage you need for your own empire. Let's analyze the neurochemistry of the invisible king. When your camouflage is perfectly integrated, your brain enters a state of hyperclarity. Because you have eliminated the need for social approval and suppressed the nice guy urge to be understood, your prefrontal cortex is liberated. You are no longer in the social dance. You are the one observing the mechanics of the flow. You see the world as a series of biological algorithms. You see the alpha who is rotting from insecurity. You see the beta who is looking for a master to serve. You see the resources that are being guarded by men who have forgotten how to fight. You are the only conscious player in a room full of sleepwalkers. This is the ghost frequency, a state of physical presence and absolute psychological detachment. Your detachment is your greatest weapon. It prevents the mirror neurons of the masses from pulling you down into their mediocre, fear-based reality. You are the only one not infected by the social narrative because you are the one using the narrative as a tactical tool. We must address the parasitic nature of what you call a normal life. Look at the men around you, the pillars of the community, the successful employees, the loyal subjects. They are trapped in a slow-motion suicide of the spirit. Their authenticity is a cage, and their reputation is a leash held by a system that hates them. They are forced to act in predictable patterns to maintain a status they do not even own. They are the poles in a fence, standing exactly where they were told to stand. The sovereign man looks at this normalcy and sees a vortex of decay. He sees men whose testosterone is plummeting because they have traded their hunting instincts for the comfort of a cubicle. Every moment you spend trying to be yourself within a broken system is an act of active self-destruction. You are sacrificing your health, your clarity, and your future for a comfort that is actually your execution. If you do not learn to integrate the chameleon effect to exit this trap, you are choosing to rot as a pillar in a falling building. The first movement toward the fortress is the brutal recognition of your own entrapment. You must look at your life and admit, I'm stuck. I've been following a script I did not write. My identity is a collection of habits designed to keep me safe and small. This is the ultimatum of the self. You must recognize that the blind repetition of someone else's scenario is a path to nowhere. It is a path to the graveyard of the pillars. If you continue to move with your current default settings, you will reach the default end, poverty of spirit and irrelevance. The chameleon effect is the only way to jump the board. It allows you to move like a piece you are not supposed to be, capturing resources that should be out of your reach. But this requires you to to kill the urge to be understood. The man who wants to be understood is a man who wants to be owned. The sovereign man is comfortable being a mystery. His only concern is the survival of the mission. Consider the sovereign root strategy. As you integrate your masks, you must build a digital and physical territory that is entirely separate from your public veneers. This is the cold room of your empire. This is where you store the energy and the assets you have extracted from the matrix using the proven systems and the protocol. 260. The world sees the chameleon, but the master lives in the fortress. This double life is the only way to maintain your sanity in a world built on lies. You are a dual-core system. One core processes the social data to maintain the mask, while the other core processes the strategic expansion of your power. When these two cores are synced, you are no longer working for a living. You are hunting for a legacy. You are using the camouflage to hide the construction of your own monument. By the time the world realizes you are a king, the walls will be too high for them to climb. Finally, we must talk about the final exit from the matrix. Most men are looking for a shortcut, a way to fix their lives without changing their essence. There is no such way. There is only the calculated siege of reality. Camouflage is the Trojan horse that allows you into the heart of the system. Once you are there, your task is to perform a biological transfer, taking the energy, the information, and the wealth of a dying parasitic system and using it to fuel your own independent life. This is the only way to survive the coming collapse. While the masses are losing their minds as their authentic lives fall apart, the chameleon is simply switching masks and moving to his next territory. He is unaffected because he never belonged to the system in the first place. He was always a ghost, a predator, a sovereign observer. This is your final ultimatum. Every second you spend without a social camouflage plan is a second you spend as a target. You are currently visible, and in this world, that means you are prey. You are losing your health, your time, and your future to a machine that will discard your shell the moment you are empty. You must decide right now. Will you continue to be an authentic failure, or will you become a strategic master of the mask? Will you continue to be yourself until there is nothing left of you, or will you shed your rigid identity and become the ghost who owns the room? The path is clinical, cold, and absolute. The price is your ego. The reward is everything. For those who realize that they are too deep in the mud to pull themselves out alone, for those who understand that samomune vitaschit, there are structured routes and proven, documented systems. These are for the men who are done with excuses and ready to follow a strictly described route to sovereignty. The rest of you can continue to rot in your normal life. You can continue to be pillars of a dead world. The choice is yours. The clock is ticking. The predator is already behind you. Put on the mask or prepare to be consumed.